Jake Morrison stood at attention near the entrance of the grand ceremonial hall. His dark blue uniform was crisp and spotless, but he felt uncomfortable in it. He was a Marine, not a diplomat. His place was on a ship or a battlefield, not at some fancy alien party. The hall itself was massive. The ceiling rose so high that Jake could barely see it. Strange lights floated in the air without any visible support. They cast a soft glow over hundreds of alien beings who had gathered for the ceremony. Most of them were Velkari, the insectoid species that controlled this part of space. Jake had seen pictures of the Velkari before, but seeing them in person was different. They stood on 4 legs, with 2 more limbs that served as arms. Their bodies were covered in hard shells that shimmered in shades of blue and green. Their heads were angular, with large compound eyes that seemed to see everything at once. When they spoke, their mandibles clicked and clacked in ways that made Jake's skin crawl. Captain Ryan Hayes, the leader of the human delegation, stood near the center of the hall. He wore his dress uniform and smiled at the Velkari officials around him. Jake knew the captain was good at this sort of thing. Talking, negotiating, making deals. Jake was good at other things. Like keeping people alive. That was why he was here. Security detail. His job was simple. Watch for threats. Keep the humans safe. Don't start an incident. The problem was that everything here felt like a threat. The Velkari moved in ways that set off alarms in Jake's head. Quick, precise, predatory. Their guards carried weapons that hummed with energy. The station itself, Crosspoint 7, was neutral ground, but that didn't mean much if someone decided to break the rules. Jake's eyes swept the room again. He had memorized every exit, every guard position, every place where someone could hide. It was habit. Good habits kept people alive. A group of Velkari entered through the main doors. The crowd parted for them immediately. Jake recognized the formation. Royalty. At the center walked a Velkari who was smaller than the others but moved with absolute confidence. Her shell was a deeper blue than the rest, almost purple in the floating lights. Jewelry hung from her limbs, marking her status. Princess Shivara, the Emperor's youngest daughter. Jake had been briefed about her. She was the one pushing for this alliance with humanity. Many of her own people hated her for it. The princess made her way to a raised platform at the front of the hall. Her guards took positions around her, but they stayed back far enough to give her space. She was going to give a speech, the opening address for the trade negotiations. Jake shifted his weight slightly. His eyes moved across the crowd, looking for anything unusual. That was when he saw him, a maintenance worker near one of the side walls. The worker wore the standard gray uniform of station personnel. He was adjusting something on a panel. Nothing unusual about that, except that Jake had memorized the maintenance schedule. No work was supposed to happen during the ceremony. Jake touched the small communicator in his ear. "Captain," he said quietly, "we have a potential problem. Maintenance worker. Southwest corner. Shouldn't be there." There was a pause. Then Captain Hayes's voice came through. "Noted. Keep watching. Don't make a scene." Jake's jaw tightened. Don't make a scene. That was the problem with diplomacy. Sometimes making a scene was exactly what you needed to do. The worker finished whatever he was doing with the panel. He stepped back. His hands moved to his tool belt. Something about the motion was wrong. Too quick. Too focused. Princess Shivara began her speech. Her voice was translated by devices that everyone wore. "Honored guests," she said. "We gather today to forge a new path forward. A path that includes our newest neighbors, humanity." Some of the Velkari in the crowd shifted. Jake could feel the tension. Not everyone was happy about this. The maintenance worker's hand closed around something on his belt. Jake saw it clearly now. Not a tool. Something else. Something that pulsed with a faint red light. Time seemed to slow down. Jake's training took over. He analyzed the situation in a fraction of a second. The object was a weapon. A plasma charge. Probably. Small, but powerful. The worker was positioning himself. His target was clear. The princess. Jake didn't think. Thinking took too long. He moved. His boots pounded against the polished floor as he sprinted forward. The Valkyrie guards turned toward him, confused. Some reached for their weapons. They thought he was the threat. "Gun!" Jake shouted. "Southwest corner." The maintenance worker pulled the device free. It was definitely a plasma charge. Jake could see the activation light turn from red to yellow. 5 seconds, maybe less. Princess Shivara turned toward the commotion. Her large eyes widened as she saw Jake running at her. Her guards started to move, but they were too far away. The worker threw the charge. It arced through the air, spinning as it flew. The light turned green. Armed. Deadly. Jake hit the platform at full speed. He grabbed the princess and twisted, putting his body between her and the incoming weapon. She was lighter than he expected. Her shell was hard against his arms. The charge detonated. The blast was like getting hit by a truck. Heat and force slammed into Jake's back. He felt his uniform burn away. His skin blistered. Something in his chest cracked. The pain was beyond anything he had ever experienced. He heard the princess scream. Or maybe he screamed. He couldn't tell. The force of the explosion threw them both off the platform. Jake kept his grip on the princess, still trying to shield her. They hit the ground hard. Jake's head bounced off the floor, his vision blurred. He could hear alarms, shouting, the distinct sound of energy weapons firing. The guards had found the attacker. Jake tried to move. His body wouldn't respond. The pain in his back had spread everywhere. He couldn't feel his legs. That was bad. That was very bad. He was lying on his side. He could see the princess a few feet away. She was moving. Alive. Her shell had cracks in it. But she was alive. Worth it, Jake thought. His vision darkened around the edges. Faces appeared above him. Valkyrie guards. Captain Hayes. The captain was shouting something. But Jake couldn't hear the words anymore. The last thing Jake saw before the darkness took him was Princess Shivara. She was crawling toward him. Her mandibles were moving. Her eyes were fixed on his face. Then everything went black. Pain was the first thing Jake felt. Not the sharp, burning pain from the explosion. This was different. A deep ache that filled his entire body. It felt like someone had taken him apart and put him back together wrong. He opened his eyes slowly. The light was soft, which was good because his head was pounding. The ceiling above him was curved and smooth. Patterns of light moved across it like living things. They pulsed in shades of blue and green. Jake tried to sit up. His body protested immediately. Every muscle screamed at him to stay still. He managed to turn his head to the side. The room was unlike anything he had seen before. The walls curved inward, organic and flowing. There were no sharp corners. Everything seemed to grow out of the floor rather than being built. Strange plants lined one wall, glowing softly. Medical equipment surrounded his bed, but none of it looked familiar. A figure stood near the window. Tall, four-legged, with a shell that shimmered purple-blue in the light. Princess Shivara. She turned as Jake moved. Her large compound eyes focused on him. "You are awake," she said. The translation device made her voice sound smooth and clear. "I was beginning to worry you never would." Jake's throat was dry. He tried to speak but only managed a rough cough. The princess moved to a nearby table. She picked up a container of water and brought it to him. Jake took it with shaking hands and drank. The water was cool and sweet, not quite like earth water but close enough. "Where am I?" Jake finally managed to ask. "The Imperial Palace," Princess Shivara said. "On my homeworld, Velkar Prime. You have been unconscious for 3 weeks. 3 weeks." Jake processed that slowly. The last thing he remembered was the explosion. The pain. Hitting the ground. "The attack," he said. "The others. Captain Hayes. Are they?" "They are fine," the princess said quickly. "You were the only one seriously injured. You took the full force of the blast." Jake looked down at himself. He was covered in a thin white sheet. Underneath, he could see bandages wrapped around his chest and arms. His skin, where it was visible, looked different. Patches of it were darker, scarred. Some areas seemed to shimmer slightly, like they weren't quite his own skin anymore. "What did you do to me?" Jake asked. Before the princess could answer, a door opened. 3 Velkari entered. They wore white shells marked with red symbols. "Doctors," Jake guessed. They gathered around his bed, their eyes examining him closely. One of them spoke rapidly in the clicking Velkari language. The translation device in Jake's ear struggled to keep up. "Remarkable recovery. The human physiology is more resilient than predicted. The cellular regeneration treatment worked, though not perfectly. Some permanent damage remains." "Explain it to him," Princess Shivara ordered. The doctor turned to Jake. "You should have died. The plasma charge released enough energy to vaporize organic matter. Your back absorbed most of the blast. The radiation alone should have killed you." Jake waited. There was always a but in these situations. "But humans are tough," the doctor continued. "Tougher than we expected. Your body held together long enough for us to stabilize you. We used Velkari medical technology to repair the damage, synthetic tissue to replace what was destroyed, bone reinforcement, organ regeneration." "You experimented on me?" Jake asked flatly. "We saved you," the doctor said. "These procedures have never been performed on a human before. We did not know if they would work. But the princess insisted we try everything." Jake looked at Princess Shivara. She met his gaze without flinching. "Why?" Jake asked. "Because you saved my life," she said simply. The doctors continued their examination for several more minutes. They asked Jake to move different parts of his body, to describe what he felt. Everything hurt, but everything seemed to work. Eventually, they left, muttering to each other in their own language. Princess Shivara remained. "I need to explain something to you," she said. "Something important about our culture." Jake waited. "When a Velkari saves another's life, a bond is created. We call it Talshara, a life debt. The person whose life was saved owes everything to their savior. This debt must be repaid." "I don't want anything," Jake said. "I was just doing my job." The princess made a sound that the translator interpreted as a laugh. "That is the problem. You do not understand. This is not about what you want. The debt exists, whether you claim it or not, and in this case, I am the one who owes the debt." Jake frowned. "So you owe me something. Fine. We're even. I'm alive because you saved me with your fancy medical technology." "It does not work that way," Princess Shivara said. She sounded frustrated. "You saved my life, at the cost of your own. That is the highest form of sacrifice. No amount of medical treatment can repay that. The Talshara remains." "This is giving me a headache," Jake muttered. The door opened again. This time, Captain Hayes entered. He looked tired, but his face brightened when he saw Jake awake. "Morrison," the captain said. "About time you woke up. You had us worried." "Sorry, sir," Jake said automatically. Captain Hayes pulled up a chair next to the bed. "I need to brief you on the situation. Things have gotten complicated." "More complicated than waking up on an alien planet with spare parts?" Jake asked. "Much more," the captain said. "The attack was carried out by a group called the Preservation Order. They're Velkari extremists who oppose any alliance with humanity. They see humans as a contamination of their pure empire." "Sounds friendly," Jake said. "They targeted the princess specifically because she supports cooperation with us. They wanted to kill her and blame it on human security failures." Captain Hayes glanced at Princess Shivara. "Your actions prevented that. You saved her life and probably prevented a war." "Great," Jake said. "So we're all friends now?" "Not exactly," the princess said. "The Talshara has created problems. Many in my court are angry that their princess owes a life debt to an alien, especially a human. They see it as shameful." "I told you, I don't want anything," Jake said again. And that makes it worse, Princess Shivara said. You refuse the honor. In our culture, that is insulting. It suggests the debt is beneath you. Jake closed his eyes. This was getting more complicated by the minute. There's more, Captain Hayes said. The Emperor wants to meet you. Tomorrow. The Emperor? Jake repeated. As in, her father? The guy who rules this entire empire? That would be him, the captain confirmed. What does he want? To decide what to do with you, Princess Shivara said quietly. Some of his advisors want you honored and sent home. Others want you to disappear quietly. A few want you executed to erase the shame of the Talshara. Executed? Jake stared at her. Politics is complicated, the princess said, especially when it involves ancient traditions and new alliances. Jake lay back against the bed. His body hurt. His head hurt. And now he had to worry about being executed by a grateful alien emperor. This is insane, he said. Welcome to the Velkari court, Princess Shivara said. There might have been sympathy in her voice. I promise you this. I will not let them harm you. You saved my life. I will protect yours. The princess has considerable influence, Captain Hayes added. And Earth is backing you fully. We've made it clear that any harm to you would be considered an act of war. Perfect, Jake said. So now I'm a potential cause of interstellar war. This just keeps getting better. Captain Hayes stood. Get some rest, Morrison. You're going to need it. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. The captain left. Princess Shivara stayed a moment longer. I am sorry, she said. This is not the gratitude you deserve. I didn't do it for gratitude, Jake said. I saw someone in danger. I reacted. That's all. That is what makes you remarkable, the princess said, and also what makes you dangerous to some of my people. Humans act on instinct. You do not calculate costs and benefits. You simply act. She moved toward the door, then paused. Sleep well, Jake Morrison. Tomorrow you meet my father. Try not to get yourself killed again. With that, she left. Jake stared at the ceiling. The patterns of light continued to pulse and flow. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear sounds. Clicking. Humming. The sounds of an alien world. He had jumped in front of a bomb to save a princess. Now he was stuck in the middle of alien politics, with a life debt he didn't want, and a meeting with an emperor who might want him dead. Just another day in the life of a Marine, Jake thought grimly. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Jake spent the next day learning to walk again. His legs worked, but they felt strange. The doctors said his muscles had weakened during the coma. They gave him exercises to do. Simple things like standing, balancing, walking across the room. A young Velkari guard watched him struggle. His name was Torval, and he had been assigned to watch Jake. At first, Jake thought it was to keep him prisoner. But Torval explained it differently. I am here to protect you, Torval said through the translator. Many in the palace wish you harm. The princess commanded that you be kept safe. Protect me from what? Jake asked, as he took another shaky step. Court politics, Torval said. Angry nobles. Extremists who might try to finish what the preservation order started. Sounds fun, Jake muttered. By afternoon, Jake could walk without holding on to things. His back still hurt, and the new skin pulled tight when he moved. But he was mobile. That was what mattered. Princess Shivara visited again, this time with her handmaiden, a Velkari named Kira Anna. They brought him proper clothes, not his uniform, which had been destroyed in the blast, but a simple tunic and pants made of soft material. The Emperor will see you in 1 hour, the princess said. I came to prepare you. And Jake pulled on the tunic. It fit well enough, though it was designed for someone with a different body shape. What do I need to know? Cried. Do not bow. Princess Shivara said. Humans do not have the right body structure for a proper Velkari bow. It would look awkward. Instead, stand straight and meet his eyes. Meet his eyes? Jake repeated. I thought that was disrespectful in a lot of cultures. Not ours, the princess said. We value directness. Looking away suggests deception or weakness. Kirana stepped forward. Do not interrupt the Emperor when he speaks. Answer his questions honestly. Do not try to flatter him. He hates false praise. Just be yourself, Princess Shivara added. That is your best chance. An hour later, Jake stood in the throne room. It was even larger than the ceremonial hall on the station. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadow. Columns lined the walls, each one carved with images of Velkari history. Hundreds of nobles filled the room, all watching him. At the far end, on a raised platform, sat Emperor Voxkir. The Emperor was massive, easily twice the size of any other Velkari Jake had seen. His shell was dark green, almost black, and covered in scars. His eyes were sharp and calculating. Age had not weakened him. If anything, he looked more dangerous than the younger Velkari. Jake walked forward. Each step echoed in the silent room. Torval walked beside him, hand on his weapon. Princess Shivara was already near the throne, standing with several other royals. Jake stopped at what he hoped was an appropriate distance. He stood straight and looked directly at the Emperor. Emperor Vaxkir studied him for a long moment. Then he spoke. His voice was deep and resonated through the hall. You are the human who saved my daughter. It was not a question, but Jake answered anyway. Yes, Your Majesty. Why? Jake blinked. Why? Why did you throw yourself in front of a plasma charge? The Emperor asked. You had no obligation to my daughter. You barely knew her. Yet you risked your life. I want to know why. Jake thought about the question. He could give a dozen different answers. Duty, training, instinct. But the Emperor wanted honesty. I saw someone in danger, Jake said simply. I had the ability to help. So I did. You did not think about the consequences? The Emperor asked. No time to think, Jake said. I just moved. And if you had thought about it? If you had known the blast would nearly kill you? Jake met the Emperor's eyes. I would have done the same thing. The Emperor leaned forward. You would sacrifice yourself for a stranger? For an alien you had never met? She wasn't a stranger, Jake said. She was a person in danger. That's enough. Murmurs ran through the assembled nobles. Jake couldn't tell if they were impressed or disgusted. My advisors tell me you are a problem, the Emperor said. The Talshara embarrasses our court. Some say you should be quietly removed. Others say you should be honored and sent away. What do you say? Honored. I say I don't want anything, Jake replied. I did my job. That's all. I don't need honors or rewards. I just want to go home. You refuse the Talshara? The Emperor's voice was sharp. I don't understand the Talshara, Jake said honestly. In my culture, we help people because it's the right thing to do. We don't expect payment for basic decency. More murmurs, louder this time. The Emperor stood. The entire room fell silent. Tell me, human, what do you think of the Velkari Empire? Jake knew this was a test. The Emperor wanted to see if he would lie. I think you're strong, Jake said. Advanced. Your technology is beyond ours. Your empire spans many worlds. You have every reason to be proud. But, the Emperor prompted, but you're so focused on strength and hierarchy that you've forgotten compassion, Jake said. You calculate everything. Cost and benefit. Honor and shame. You've lost the ability to just help someone because they need help. The nobles exploded into angry clicking and shouting. Several moved forward, reaching for weapons. Torval stepped in front of Jake. His own weapon drawn, Emperor Vaxkir raised one limb. The room fell silent instantly. You dare insult the Velkari Empire? The Emperor asked. His voice was deadly calm. You asked for honesty, Jake said. That's what I'm giving you. The Emperor stared at him. Jake forced himself not to look away, not to show fear. His heart was pounding, but he kept his expression neutral. Then the Emperor did something Jake did not expect. He laughed. The sound was strange, translated through the device as a deep rumble. The nobles looked shocked. "You have courage, human," the emperor said. "Foolish courage, perhaps, but courage nonetheless." He looked at his daughter. "I see why you find humans interesting." Princess Shivara bowed her head respectfully. The emperor turned back to Jake. "I will not execute you, nor will I send you away. Instead, you will remain in the palace as my daughter's guest. You will recover from your injuries, and you will teach my guards your human methods of combat." "Teach your guards?" Jake repeated. "You survived a plasma blast that should have killed you," the emperor said. "You fought through injuries that would cripple most species. I want to know how humans do this. I want my soldiers to learn." Jake glanced at Torval, who looked as surprised as Jake felt. "I'm not a teacher," Jake said. "You are now," the emperor said. "Consider it payment for the Talshara, if you wish, or consider it an order. Either way, you will do this. And if I refuse, then you will be escorted to your ship and sent home," the emperor said. "And the alliance between our peoples will be reconsidered." Jake understood. This was not a request. It was a test. The emperor wanted to see if humans could be useful. If Jake could teach the guards something valuable, it would prove that humanity had more to offer than just reckless courage. "I'll do it," Jake said. "On one condition." The nobles gasped. No one made conditions with the emperor. Emperor Vaxkir's eyes narrowed. "Speak." "Your guards teach me too," Jake said. "If I'm going to be stuck here, I want to learn. Fair trade." The emperor studied him. Then he nodded slowly. "Agreed. You will train with the Imperial Guard. They will learn from you. You will learn from them. If you prove useful, we will discuss the future of the Alliance." He gestured to Torval. "Guard Torval, you will oversee this training. Report to me personally on the humans' progress." Torval bowed deeply. "Yes, my emperor." "You are dismissed," the emperor said. Jake turned to leave. He made it halfway to the door before the emperor spoke again. "Human." Jake stopped and looked back. "My daughter tells me you do not understand the Talshura. Let me explain it simply. She owes you her life. That means she is bound to you until the debt is repaid. If you die, she fails in her duty. If you are harmed while under her protection, she is shamed. Do you understand?" "I think so," Jake said. "Then understand this as well," the emperor said. "The preservation order tried to kill my daughter. They failed. Now they want to kill you to shame her. They will try again. And when they do, they will not be as obvious as a maintenance worker with a bomb." "Are you warning me?" Jake asked. "I am telling you to stay alive," the emperor said. "For your sake and for my daughter's. Do not make me regret sparing you." With that, the emperor left through a door behind the throne. The nobles dispersed, many of them glaring at Jake as they passed. Princess Shivara approached him. "That went better than I expected." "He threatened me," Jake said. "He warned you," the princess corrected. "There is a difference. My father does not warn people he intends to kill." "Great," Jake muttered. "So I just have to worry about everyone else in the palace who wants me dead." Torval stepped up beside them. "I will keep you safe, human. You have my word." Jake looked at the young guard. "Why do you care?" "Because you did something I have never seen a Velkari do," Torval said. "You sacrificed yourself for someone you did not know. That is not calculation. That is not strategy. That is pure courage. I want to understand that." "Good luck," Jake said. "I'm not sure I understand it myself." As they left the throne room, Jake realized his situation had changed. He was no longer just a victim recovering from an injury. He was now a teacher, a symbol, and a target. The preservation order would come for him. The question was when. The training yard was a wide-open space with a floor made of packed sand. Weapon racks lined the walls. Targets stood at various distances. 20 Imperial guards waited in formation, their shells gleaming in the morning light. Jake stood in front of them, feeling out of place. His body was still healing, but the doctors had cleared him for light activity. Light activity. He almost laughed. Nothing about training elite alien soldiers was going to be light. Torvald stood beside him. "They are ready when you are," he said. Jake looked at the guards. They were all bigger than him, stronger, faster. Their shells were natural armor that could deflect most weapons. They had 4 legs for stability and could move in ways humans couldn't. But humans had advantages too. Jake just had to figure out how to teach them. "All right," Jake said. "First lesson. Human combat is based on one simple idea. We're smaller and weaker than most species, so we use that." One of the guards, a large Velkari named Kolran, clicked his mandibles in what Jake had learned was laughter. "You use weakness? That makes no sense." "It makes perfect sense," Jake said. "Watch." He gestured for Kolran to approach. The guard stepped forward, confident and relaxed. "Try to grab me," Jake said. Kolran reached out with his upper limbs. Jake didn't try to block or push back. Instead, he dropped low, using his smaller size to duck under the guard's reach. He moved to the side and swept one of Kolran's legs with his own. The guard stumbled. Jake didn't press the advantage. He just stepped back. "See?" Jake said. "I didn't try to overpower you. I used your strength against you. You reached high because I'm shorter. That opened up your low guard." Kolran straightened, looking thoughtful. "Show us more." Over the next few weeks, Jake taught the guards everything he knew. How to fight in close quarters. How to use the environment as a weapon. How to keep going when you were injured or exhausted. The guards were good students. They learned quickly and pushed themselves hard. In return, they taught Jake about Velkari combat, precision strikes, using their shells as weapons, fighting as a coordinated unit. Jake absorbed it all, adapting it to his human body. Torvald became a friend during this time. He was curious about humans and asked endless questions. Where did Jake come from? What was Earth like? Why did humans always act so recklessly? "We're not reckless," Jake said one evening as they finished training. "We just don't overthink things." "You jumped in front of a bomb," Torvald pointed out. "That seems reckless." "It seems reckless to you because you calculate everything," Jake said. "You weigh options. Consider outcomes. By the time you finish thinking, the moment is gone. Humans trust our instincts." "And if your instincts are wrong?" Torvald asked. "Then we die," Jake said simply. "But at least we tried." Torvald was quiet for a moment. "I envy that. We Velkari have forgotten how to act without calculation. Everything is politics. Strategy. We have become afraid to make mistakes." "Everyone's afraid to make mistakes," Jake said. "The difference is whether you let that fear stop you." On the 4th week of his stay, Jake was exploring the palace. The doctors had cleared him for full activity, and he was restless. The palace was enormous, with corridors that twisted and turned in ways that made no sense. He had gotten lost 3 times already. He was trying to find his way back to his quarters when he heard voices, Velkari voices, speaking rapidly in their own language. The translator in his ear struggled to keep up. Jake slowed. Something about the conversation felt wrong. The voices were tense, urgent. He moved closer. Staying quiet, he found a small room with an open door. Inside, 5 Velkari stood in a circle. 3 of them wore the robes of court officials. The other 2 wore simple clothes, but Jake recognized the symbols they carried. Preservation order. Jake froze. This was bad. Court officials meeting with terrorists. "The ascension ceremony is in 8 days, one of the officials said. "Everything must be ready. The charges are in place," one of the preservation order members said. "When the princess takes her oath, she will die, along with the human delegation." "She wounded." "Good," another official said. "We will blame the humans. Say they planted the bombs to destabilize the empire. The emperor will have no choice but to declare war." "What about the human guard?" the 3rd official asked. "Morrison. He remains a problem." "He will die with the others," the 1st official said. "The princess trusts him. She will want him at the ceremony. When the bombs detonate, no one near the platform will survive. Jake's blood ran cold. They were planning to kill Princess Shivara, and they were going to blame humanity for it. He needed to leave, get to Captain Hayes, warn someone. He took a step back. His boot scraped against the stone floor. The voices inside the room stopped. "What was that?" one of them asked. Jake ran. He heard shouts behind him. Footsteps. The Velkari were faster than humans on flat ground. But the palace corridors were narrow and full of turns. Jake used that. He cut corners tight, jumped over obstacles, used his smaller size to slip through gaps. He burst into a larger hallway and nearly collided with Torval. "Jake?" Torval said. "What is wrong?" "Conspiracy," Jake gasped. "Court officials. Meeting with preservation order. Planning to kill the princess at the ceremony." Torval's eyes widened. Behind Jake, the conspirators rounded the corner. They saw Torval and stopped. "Guard Torval," one of the officials said smoothly. "We were just looking for the human. He seems confused. Wandering the palace alone." Torval looked at Jake, then at the officials. "Is this true?" "I heard everything," Jake said. "They're planning an attack, bombs at the Ascension ceremony. They're going to blame humans and start a war." "He is delusional," the official said. "The blast damaged his mind. You should take him to the medical wing." Torval's hand moved to his weapon. "Step back," he said to the officials. "You would believe a human over your own people?" the official asked. "I would believe someone who saved the princess's life over someone who meets in secret with terrorists," Torval said. "All of you will come with me to the Emperor." One of the Preservation Order members moved. Fast. A blade appeared in his hand. Torval fired his weapon. The energy blast hit the attacker square in the chest, sending him flying backward. The other conspirators scattered, running in different directions. "We need to go," Torval said. "Now." They ran together through the palace. Torval knew the paths better than Jake and led them through a series of passages that Jake had never seen. They emerged in a guarded section where the human delegation was housed. Captain Hayes looked up from his desk as they burst in. "Morrison? What happened?" "We have a problem, sir," Jake said. He explained everything. The meeting, the conspiracy, the planned attack at the Ascension ceremony. Captain Hayes listened without interrupting. When Jake finished, he immediately activated his communicator. "Lieutenant Chen, get in here. We have a situation." A woman entered, Lieutenant Amy Chen, the intelligence officer. She was sharp-eyed and efficient. "I need you to verify something," Captain Hayes said. He turned to Jake. "Tell her exactly what you heard." Jake repeated the conversation. Chen took notes and asked detailed questions about the officials involved, their exact words, and the location of the meeting. "I can cross-reference this with our intelligence," Chen said. "If there's a conspiracy this deep, there should be other signs." She worked for 2 hours. Finally, she looked up. "He's right. We've been tracking unusual energy signatures in the ceremonial hall. They match the pattern of the bombs used in the first attack, but we couldn't find the source. If they're hidden in the platform itself, that would explain it." "We need to tell the Emperor," Torval said. "Will he believe us?" Jake asked. "I'm human. You're a junior guard. The people we're accusing are high-ranking officials." "We have evidence," Chen said. "Energy signatures, communication intercepts. It's not perfect, but it's enough to demand an investigation." "The ceremony is in 8 days," Captain Hayes said. "If we're wrong, we damage the alliance. If we're right and do nothing, the princess dies, and we go to war." "We tell the Emperor," Torval said firmly. "He deserves to know." Captain Hayes nodded. "All right. But we do this carefully. No accusations until we have solid proof. Chen, keep digging. Morrison, write down everything you remember, every detail. Torval, can you get us a meeting with the Emperor?" "I can try," Torval said. Over the next 3 days, they built their case. Chen uncovered communication logs showing secret meetings between court officials and known Preservation Order members. Jake's testimony was recorded and verified. Torvald spoke with other guards who had noticed strange activity around the ceremonial hall. The evidence was damning, but bringing it to the Emperor was dangerous. If the conspirators learned they had been discovered, they might move up their timeline, or they might flee and try again later. Captain Hayes decided to take the risk. He requested an emergency meeting with the Emperor. They were granted an audience on the 5th day before the ceremony. This time, when Jake entered the throne room, it was nearly empty. Just the Emperor, Princess Shivara, and a few trusted guards. The Emperor's eyes were hard as stone. "You claim there is a plot against my daughter," he said without preamble. "Yes, Your Majesty," Captain Hayes said. He gestured to Chen, who presented their evidence. The Emperor reviewed everything in silence. Princess Shivara stood beside him, her expression unreadable. Finally, the Emperor spoke. "These are serious accusations. You claim members of my own court are traitors." "We claim nothing without evidence, Your Majesty," Captain Hayes said. "But the evidence is clear." "Cancel the ceremony," Jake said suddenly. "If there's any doubt, just cancel it. Don't risk the princess." Emperor Vaxkir looked at his daughter. "What do you think?" "I think we should not let fear control us," Princess Shivara said. "But I also think this evidence cannot be ignored." "I will not cancel the ascension ceremony," the Emperor said. "It would show weakness. And if there truly are traitors in my court, I will not let them hide." Quote, he stood. "We will proceed with the ceremony as planned. But we will set a trap. If these conspirators plan to strike, we will be ready for them, and when they reveal themselves, we will destroy them." He looked at Jake. "You found this conspiracy, human. You will help us end it." Jake nodded. "Whatever you need, Your Majesty." Quote, "Good," the Emperor said. "Because in 3 days, we go to war. Not with your people. With the traitors in our own ranks." The ceremonial hall was packed with thousands of Velkari. Nobles from across the empire filled the seats. Dignitaries from a dozen different species stood in designated areas. The human delegation, small but present, occupied a place of honor near the front. Jake stood with the Imperial Guard, wearing armor that had been specially made for him. It was lighter than Velkari armor, designed for human flexibility rather than shell protection. Torvald stood beside him, along with 20 other guards they knew they could trust. More guards were positioned throughout the hall. Some were loyal to the Emperor. Others were conspirators, though they didn't know they had been identified. Emperor Vaxkir had decided to let the traitors think their plan was still secret. It was the only way to catch them all. Princess Shivara walked down the central aisle toward the platform. She wore ceremonial robes that sparkled with embedded crystals. Her shell had been polished until it shone like a mirror. She looked every bit the future empress. Jake's eyes never stopped moving. He watched the crowd, the guards, the exits. Somewhere in this hall were bombs powerful enough to kill everyone near the platform. Somewhere were the conspirators who planned to detonate them. The princess reached the platform and climbed the steps. Emperor Vaxkir stood at the top, waiting. The crowd fell silent. "Today," the Emperor announced, "my daughter takes her oath as heir to the throne. She will speak the ancient words and bind herself to the empire." Witness this moment. Princess Shivara knelt before her father. She began to recite the oath in the old Velkari language. The translator in Jake's ear provided the meaning. Promises of duty, loyalty, and sacrifice. Jake's communicator buzzed softly. Lieutenant Chen's voice came through, barely a whisper. "Energy signatures are active. The bombs are armed. 3 locations: under the platform, behind the north pillar, and in the ceiling directly above." "Copy that," Jake whispered back. He signaled to Torvald, who passed the information to the other trusted guards. The princess continued her oath. She was halfway through when Jake saw it. A court official near the north pillar. His hand moved to a device on his belt. The detonator. Contact north, Jake said quietly. Moving to intercept, he didn't wait for permission. He broke from his position and ran. The official saw him coming, and his eyes went wide. The official pressed the detonator. Nothing happened. Chen had done her job. She had found the bombs and disabled the remote triggers. But the bombs were still there, and they could still be triggered manually. The official pulled a weapon. So did 3 other conspirators scattered through the hall. The trap had been sprung. Traitors, Emperor Vaxkir roared. Seize them. Chaos erupted. The loyal guards moved toward the conspirators. But the traitors had planned for this. More of them revealed themselves. Not just court officials, but guards too. A dozen of them. All armed. Energy blasts lit up the hall. The civilians screamed and ran for the exits. The human delegation hit the ground. Taking cover, Jake reached the official with the detonator and tackled him. They hit the ground hard. The official was stronger. But Jake was trained for this. He used his weight to control the larger alien's limbs, preventing him from using his natural advantages. A blade flashed. Jake rolled aside just in time. The blade struck stone where his head had been a moment before. Jake drove his elbow into the official's mandibles. Something cracked. The official shrieked and dropped the blade. Torval appeared, weapon raised. Stay down, he ordered the official. Jake grabbed the detonator from the official's belt and crushed it under his boot. One threat eliminated, but there were more. Near the platform, 3 conspirators had broken through the guard line. They were heading for Princess Shivara. She stood her ground, but she was not armed. Jake ran again. His legs burned. His back ached where the new skin pulled tight. He didn't care. One of the conspirators raised his weapon, aiming at the princess. Jake threw himself forward in a sliding tackle, hitting the conspirator's legs. They both went down. The weapon fired. The energy blast went wide, hitting the ceiling. Jake and the conspirator wrestled on the ground. The Velkari was stronger, but Jake was more desperate. He got his hands on the weapon and twisted it around, forcing the barrel away from both of them. The weapon fired again, the blast hitting another conspirator who had been moving to help. Jake felt claws rake across his side. Pain flared through him, but he held onto the weapon, refusing to let go. Torval fired from across the room. The energy blast hit Jake's opponent's center mass. The conspirator went limp. Jake struggled to his feet. Blood was soaking through his armor where the claws had cut him. He ignored it. 2 more conspirators were still moving toward the princess. The emperor had descended from the platform and was fighting one of them directly. The ancient ruler moved with surprising speed, his massive limbs smashing through the conspirators' defenses. But the last conspirator was almost to Princess Shivara. Jake sprinted. He was too far away. He wouldn't make it. The conspirator raised an energy blade. Princess Shivara backed up, but there was nowhere to go. She was trapped against the platform. The blade came down. Jake crashed into the conspirator from the side. They tumbled together, the blade flying from the conspirator's grip. This one was fast. He recovered quickly, and his claws found Jake's throat. They tightened, cutting off air. Jake drove his knee into the conspirator's midsection. Once. Twice. The grip loosened slightly, then a shot rang out. The conspirator jerked and released Jake. He fell backward, a smoking hole in his shell. Captain Hayes stood a few feet away, holding a human plasma pistol. "You all right, Morrison?" Jake coughed and nodded. "Fine, sir." The fight was over. The loyal guards had subdued the remaining conspirators. Bodies lay scattered across the hall. Some were traitors. Some were innocent guards who had been caught in the crossfire. Emperor Vaxkir walked to where Jake stood. The emperor's robes were torn, and blood dripped from a cut on his shell. But he stood tall. "You saved my daughter again," the emperor said. "Just doing my job," Jake managed to say. "No," the emperor said firmly. "You did far more than your job required. You risked your life for my daughter twice now. You uncovered a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of my government. You have proven yourself not just brave, but loyal and true." He turned to address the hall. Most of the civilians had fled. but enough remained to witness what came next. Let it be known, the Emperor announced. Jake Morrison of Earth is declared a friend of the Velkari Empire. He is granted the status of honorary noble, and will be recognized as such across all our worlds. Jake blinked. Your Majesty, I don't need— It is not about what you need, the Emperor interrupted. It is about what you have earned. Accept the honor, human. You have more than paid for it. Princess Shivara approached. She looked shaken but unharmed. The Tal Shara, she said. How can I repay the debt I owe you? Jake looked at her. Then, at the Emperor. Then, at the hall around them. Damaged by the fight, but still standing. Keep pushing for peace, Jake said. Keep fighting for cooperation between our peoples. Make sure this alliance works. That's all I want. Princess Shivara stared at him. Then she did something Jake had never seen a Velkari do. She bowed. Not the formal court bow, but a deep, genuine show of respect. The Tal Shara is repaid, she said. Not because the debt is settled, but because your request shows the debt was never needed. You do not act for reward or recognition. You act because it is right. That is a lesson the Velkari need to learn, the Emperor nodded. Agreed. We have become too focused on calculation and politics. We have forgotten the simple act of doing good, without expectation of return. He placed one of his massive limbs on Jake's shoulder. You will return to Earth a hero. But know this. You will always be welcome among the Velkari, and when your people need allies, they will have them. Thank you, Your Majesty, Jake said. 2 weeks later, Jake stood on the bridge of the Earth ship Horizon. His wounds had healed again, thanks to more Velkari medicine. He wore his dress uniform, complete with a new medal the Emperor had insisted he take. Captain Hayes stood beside him. How do you feel? Tired, Jake said honestly. Ready to go home. You did good work here, Morrison. Saved the princess twice, stopped a coup, secured an alliance. Not bad for a Marine. Just lucky, sir, Jake said. Luck had nothing to do with it, Captain Hayes said. You acted on instinct. Twice. And both times, that instinct was right. Through the viewport, Jake could see the Velkari homeworld, beautiful and alien. Princess Shivara had come to see him off. So had Torval and many of the guards he had trained with. They had called him friend, brother, hero. Jake didn't feel like a hero. He felt like someone who had done what needed to be done. As the ship prepared to depart, a message came through, from the princess. Thank you, Jake Morrison, for everything. Safe travels. And remember, you will always have friends among the stars. Jake smiled. Maybe this whole crazy adventure had been worth it after all. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying him home. But he knew this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Humanity had proven itself to the Velkari. Other species would be watching. The galaxy was changing, and somewhere out there, other threats would emerge. Other people who would need help. Jake would be ready. Because that was what humans did. They stood up, they acted, they protected those who needed protection. Not because it was smart or calculated or profitable, but because it was right. And that, Jake thought, was the real reason humanity belonged among the stars.